Uhuru Kenyatta's presidency cannot be reduced to personal chemistry, internal politics, or who liked who. It must be judged by what he actually delivered, what he actually failed to deliver, and the long-term consequences of his decisions. The Eurobond, the dams, Galana Kulalu, MECs, the laptop project, Huduma number, the debt he accumulated, and the crisis Kenyans are living through today. These outcomes were not created by sabotage. They were created by leadership choices, and leadership choices have leadership consequences. If Kenya is going to move forward as a nation, we must normalize this simple truth. Kenya is paying a very heavy price today, and it did not start with William Ruto. Before the taxes, before the IMF conditions, before the anger you see on the streets, there was one man who quietly shaped the debt we are drowning in today. And that man is Uhuru Kenyatta. And the truth is very simple. You cannot understand Kenya's current suffering without going back to the decisions he made, the loans he signed, and the projects he pushed, many of which never delivered what he promised. You see, when Uhuru took office in 2013, Kenya's public debt was roughly 1.8 to 2 trillion. By the time he was leaving in 2022, that number had exploded to almost 9 trillion Kenya shillings. When people talk about Kenya's debt crisis, most jump straight to the taxes and the IMF, but the real turning point happened in 2014. Barely a year into Uhuru's first term, when Kenya did something it had never done before. It went to the international financial markets to borrow money directly from the global investors. And this was the first Eurobond in Kenya's history. Mark you, first Eurobond in Kenya's history. It was sold to the public as a major achievement, a sign that Kenya had become a serious player, trusted by Wall Street and European banks. Uhuru's government borrowed $2 billion at once. And this loan came in two parts, one with 5.875% interest and the other with 6.875% interest. And those rates looked normal at the time. But for a developing country like Kenya, they were still very expensive loans. And that moment changed everything. Before this, Kenya mostly borrowed from traditional lenders, World Bank, IMF, AFDB, where interest rates were low and repayment stretched over many years. But Eurobond money is very different. It comes with tight deadlines, huge penalties, and no mercy if you delay. Once you enter that world, you are essentially telling the world, we are ready to borrow like a rich country, even though we are not one. And that's exactly what happened. Government told Kenyans that the money would fund energy and infrastructure. But when civil society and auditors started digging, something did not add up. Out of the roughly 250 billion Kenya shillings, only around 160 billion could be clearly linked to projects. The rest vanished into the budget, untraceable in any specific development project. For years, MPs, civil society, and even international organizations kept asking the same question. Where did the Eurobond billions actually go? And not because the money disappeared into thin air, but because the Treasury could never show exactly which development projects it funded. Every audit ended with the same conclusion. The money entered government accounts, but it could not be traced to specific projects. And to this day, Uhuru Kenyatta has never given a clear project-by-project explanation. There is no breakdown, no list, and there is zero accountability. And once Kenya entered that 2014 Eurobond world, everything changed. When you borrow from global markets and repay on time, those lenders don't back off. They encourage you. Great, come borrow again tomorrow, come borrow more. And that's exactly what happened. Uhuru's administration kept returning to the international markets. 2018, Kenya issued another Eurobond. 2 billion US dollars that was split into 1 billion that would be paid in 10 years at 7.25% and $1 billion that would be paid in 30 years at 8.25%. Then in 2019, Kenya borrowed again 2.1 billion US dollars with $900 million to be paid in 7 years at 7% interest and 1.2 billion US dollars to be paid at 12 years at 8% interest. Every round of borrowing came with higher interest because lenders were now seeing Kenya as riskier. And it was not just Eurobonds. We went for more commercial loans, more syndicated loans from European banks, more Chinese loans tied to expensive infrastructure, more short-term borrowing to plug holes into the budget, and the pattern became obvious. The more Kenya borrowed, the harder it became to stop, and the more expensive every new loan became. By the time the first Eurobond matured in 2024, Kenya had to borrow another expensive Eurobond just to survive. And this is how Kenya slowly walked into a debt trap. Because once you start borrowing heavily from commercial markets, the rules change. These lenders don't wait, they don't negotiate, they don't even forgive. They want their money exactly when it's due and with full interest. So, by the time Kenya's first Eurobond, the one from 2014, was maturing in June 2024, the government simply did not have the cash to pay it back from normal revenue. What did Kenya do? Exactly what happens in a debt trap. Borrow a new loan to pay the old one. February 2024, Kenya issued another Eurobond, 1.5 billion US dollars at about 10.375% interest, one of the highest rates Kenya has ever paid. Most of that money was used to buy back the old Eurobond, and the rest was cleared using a World Bank loan. Think about that. A whole decade after the first Eurobond, Kenya was now borrowing at double-digit interest just to clean up the previous loan. That is not development, my people. And this cycle did not start in 2023 or 2024. It started the moment Kenya opened the Eurobond door in 2014, under whose leadership? Uhuru, Muigai, Kenyatta. And this door flooded the country with expensive debt, rising interest rates, and a habit of borrowing before thinking. Let us separate the person from the presidency. Let us go back to asking ourselves, what are the duties of a president? Ndio mtu akisema, the president did not do this and this. Stop looking at this person as if they are attacking the person. We have to go back to learning and relearning. What are the duties of a president? Not a person, a president. A president. And that is why we can't buy this notion that, your guy was being sabotaged. Did he resign? No. He enjoyed to the last minute the benefits of being a president. He got his salaries. He got the incentives that comes with being a president. He got all that. And now all we need to buy is he was being sabotaged. Why did you not unsabotage yourself? Why did you not step down? Those are the hard questions we have to start asking. We have to go back to those projects now and demand for someone to be held accountable. And that's the painful truth. There's an argument you'll hear a lot that Kenya's former President Uhuru Kenyatta was sabotaged by his deputy William Ruto, that he would have delivered if his deputy had cooperated, that he has a softer personality, a likable aura, a calm presence, and that the chaos was simply caused by the people around him. But here's the truth we must say openly. Uhuru was not a junior officer. He was the president of the Republic of Kenya. The presidency is not a position for sympathy or excuses. It's a position of power. And with that power comes full responsibility. If Uhuru genuinely believed that his deputy was sabotaging his vision, then he had two choices: take decisive presidential action, reorganize government, fire people, restructure his cabinet, push parliament, use constitutional tools and take control, or step down and tell the country the truth. But you cannot sit in the highest office for 10 years, watch the nation sink, keep signing loans, keep launching projects, keep addressing the country, and then later claim that someone else stopped you from delivering. That is not leadership. That is avoiding accountability. Because leadership is judged by outcomes, not explanations. And this is exactly where Kenyans need to mature politically. We have to stop treating politicians like personal heroes or defending them the way kids defend their favorite teacher or their favorite things. This is not kindergarten. This is not an emotional playground. This is a country with real debt, real hunger, real unemployment, and real consequences. In serious countries, for example, Japan, UK, South Korea, New Zealand, Australia, prime ministers and ministers resign for far less. They will resign for a failed policy, a budget overrun, a stalled project, and they will step down not because they want to, but because the system demands accountability. In Kenya, however, we have normalized the opposite. We excuse politicians, we protect them, and then blame their deputies, blame their advisors, and never blame the person who actually held the office. But we must change this mindset. When someone is entrusted with the presidency, they carry the full weight of success and failure. And if they fail, we must say it clearly, not with anger, not with hatred, but with the truth. Because at the end of the day, Kenyans don't eat personality. We will not survive on that aura. Kenyans will not prosper on charisma. We deserve a government that delivers, a government that will deliver roads, water, food, healthcare, opportunities, and a government that will operate in discipline and transparency, not excuses. But the real danger, guys, is this. If we don't learn from this era, we will repeat it. We will fall for charisma. We will fall for the hustler movement. We will fall for personalities again. We will fall for these fake Christians again. And we will vote for people because they speak well, smile well, dress well, or feel relatable. And we are going to confuse their confidence with competence. And we are also going to confuse excitement with expertise. We will confuse a great aura with great leadership. And that is how nations stay stuck. Kenya cannot afford politicians who perform well on stage, but they collapse in those boardrooms. No. We cannot afford leaders who launch projects loudly, but execute them poorly. We cannot afford politicians who borrow aggressively, but plan carelessly. And we cannot keep electing politicians because they look presidential, you know. Well, we are here ignoring whether they understand systems, numbers, policy, and long-term impact. Personality does not pay debts. That aura will not strengthen institutions. That charisma will not lower the cost of living. And a good speech will not fix a broken economy. What Kenya needs now is discipline, strategy, competence, and honesty. These are qualities that are rarely loud, rarely dramatic, and rarely celebrated. No one will celebrate them. But these qualities are the reason some countries move forward, while others keep circling the same problems. So, the lessons from Uhuru's decade is not anger. It's awareness, guys. Awareness. Awareness that leadership is not about who shines the brightest, but who thinks the deepest. Leadership is not about who promises the most, but who prepares the best, who plans the best, you know. It's not about who talks, but who delivers sustainably. And if this generation truly wants a different future, we must stop voting like fans who are choosing their favorite celebrities. Leave that for the awards. Please start voting like shareholders who are choosing someone to protect your investment. Because that is what leadership is. a national investment, and Kenya has paid too high a price for choosing style over substance. Yeah, for choosing aura. Let this be the decade we finally break that cycle. Please let these loans mean something. Let this high cost of living mean something. Please, let it mean something. Let us use this pain. Let this be the moment Kenya grows up politically. And let us never again confuse a great personality for great leadership. Yes. I mean, the shocking thing is, when we come back here, now we will talk about bottom up. You know how some of you were fooled by this whole hustler, chicken seller, notion. That is how these guys win.
Simseme na nguvu. Ground inasema aje? Ground inasema aje?
Nunca la ves.